Today, Israel is bombing Hezbollah sites in Lebanon, in the south of the country, piling pressure on the militant group already reeling after explosions targeted its communication systems this week. In a statement this afternoon, the Israeli army said its chief of staff had approved plans for the northern arena that refers to the front with Lebanon. Now, those comments come as this afternoon Hassan Nasrallah is speaking in Lebanon, the Hezbollah leader describing the attacks that killed 37 people and left over 3,000 injured as a massacre. He said Israel had crossed, quote, all red lines. Well, with me now is Douglas Herbert, who's listened to a little of Nasrallah, who is still speaking this afternoon. Just give us a sense of his tone and his message so far.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, he's clearly trying to look like he's calm and composed, but you can imagine internally he's anything but calm and composed, and his words suggest that he is very much aware of just how devastating a blow, humiliating a blow this was to Hezbollah. As we were saying earlier, right, this is by far the biggest security breach to Hezbollah in its four-decade history. Nasrallah was upfront about it. He, like you said, suffering that it suffered a major blow, an unprecedented blow, are the words that he used. At the same time, he's saying that while it was a major blow, it is not going to cause Hezbollah to fall. So we were talking earlier about Hezbollah really staking its entire persona on its defiance, on its image of defiance. That is what defines Hezbollah. So even in the wake of what is, by his own recognition, his own acknowledgement, a devastating blow to Hezbollah in the whole scope of its history, the organization is still committed to remaining defiant, to showing its defiance. Now, that's obviously going to be a lot more difficult in the wake of these back-to-back, apparently coordinated attacks attributed to Israel by most in the region, attacks which have essentially knocked out, not just severely degraded, but all but knocked out Hezbollah's mode of communication, internally communication for militants to communicate among each other for operations. And there's been a lot of speculation. So how do you communicate? If you don't have, presumably, the use of cell phones, they may have to fall back on cell phones, even though the reason they stopped communicating that way is because Nasrallah told them that it is too vulnerable and susceptible to Israeli surveillance. They may have to, in the short or immediate term, just to communicate, fall back on that. If not, what are they going to use? Homing pigeons? No, but more seriously, they'll have to use perhaps human couriers, which is not an exactly effective, viable way to communicate across broad distances with their fighters spread out across a vast swathe of Lebanon. They might have to fall back on landlines, telephone landlines. Remember those? And basically, those are obviously also susceptible to surveillance. So this is Nasrallah speaking in very much in chastened mode, but still defiant mode. He also mentioned that, the pagers had been distributed to 4,000 Hezbollah militants of his fighters. So what he's really saying is that the intention of Israel, even if ultimately it wasn't 4,000 that died, he said the intentions were effectively to kill 4,000 people. So he is trying to basically accentuate just how devastating this could have been beyond the death toll that we've already seen of several dozens in these back-to-back attacks. He's basically saying it could have been much worse. But what I suspect right now is he is trying to, this is a holding pattern, this speech. It's hard to rally your followers when they're literally down and out, many of them in hospital right now, many of them with grievous injuries, many of them literally blinded because they brought these pagers to their face to see the message. But what he's trying to do is signal that even in the face of this enormous setback for the organization, Hezbollah is down, but it's not out. It's going to continue fighting. Obviously becoming much more complicated today in light of what you just reported, Nadia, with the reports of fighters, jet fighters flying low over the Lebanese capital, Beirut, and also those earlier reports of strikes by presumably Israeli jets against 6 Hezbollah infrastructure sites, as well as a weapons depot in southern Lebanon.